So you mentioned in the retreat about an experience you had, which started your journey until you started teaching. And so, how was life like before? Like you had the beliefs, you need to become something in the world. How was life before that moment of self-realization you had? Could you share
Yeah.
some if you?
So when I was fairly young, I would say there was always this sense of awareness there of that there's something not quite, the sense was there's something not quite right with the way that society is, life is, what people believe. I would observe the people around me and what they were believing and how they were suffering what they were believing. And there was a sense within me, why are they believing that? I can see that's, not true. So there was this sense of that, and there was also a natural sense at a young age of a more expansiveness, possibility. I was also fortunate to have an uncle who was a spiritualist medium, and we used to have these really deep, in-depth discussions when I was young that would like go for hours and hours, on end, one of those kinds of discussions where you end up going into all different things, paranormal, UFOs,
Awesome.
Spirituality, reincarnation. And I think that actually really helped at that age to kind of keep my mind open to things, to keep it fairly expansive. But, as I got into school and went through that system, as we've said, then I started to take on some of these ideas, and then I went into the army when I was 16 years of age, and that's a whole load of other conditioning that you take on, and they tell you that they say we're here to train you and program you to be the way we want you to be part of the collective, so that you follow orders and you don't question. So you take on then more conditioning. And what that showed me was the nature of conditioning, how it works, gave me a good insight into that, because in the army they are actually purposefully brainwashing you through the things that they're doing, and they don't really make any secret about that. So I got to witness that process firsthand, and that learnt me a lot about the nature of programming and conditioning. And then it's when I came out of the army, that at age 18, that I then had to find some work. But I always felt all of my life, and certainly as soon as I left school, a sense of being a bit lost in the world. Like I didn't belong, like working a 9-to-5 job. I could see at that time, to me it was like ludicrous. Why do I have to work to live? The nature's out there for us, and we've got this food, and this earth is a potential paradise, and why is everybody being forced to work to live? To me at that time, for some reason, I could see it was a bit of a con. The system was a little bit of a con, and it felt like a little bit of almost like slavery. Is the sense that I had, if I'm honest. That's how I felt. And so maybe I had a little bit of a rebellious nature against that. So I was always trying to move away from the conventional 9-to-5 system and all this kind of thing. That is one reason why I went into the army in the first place, although that turned out to be like jumping out of the frying pan into the fire, So, so when I came out, I had to go and do some work, because I was living with my parents at the time, and they were putting some pressure on me to obviously get a job, and for me to eventually move out, which is of course fair enough. And so I did some plumbing work for a while, and did a plumbing apprenticeship, and then I ended up getting into mixed martial arts. I'd done martial arts my whole life from a young age. Got my black belt in Taekwondo at a young age. And then when I came out of the army, I then started training in mixed martial arts. And I felt like this was a path that I could pursue. And when I was young, I'd got respect and admiration for getting into certain confrontations and being able to defend myself. And I guess a part of my mind, the egoic mind at that time, clung to that identity. Oh, I'm a fighter. Oh, this is how I get respect from people. People admire me because I can, you know, and guys admire me, and women admire me because I'm able to defend myself, and, you know. So I had a sense of identity that got wrapped around that, and then I was trying to defend and maintain that identity. And that's why, one of the reasons why I then got into mixed martial arts and competing professionally in mixed martial arts. There was a sense of trying to prove something and maintain something, to essentially be something in the world. Oh, this is who I am, this is who I must be in the world, this is what I've got to be in the world, this is my place in the world. And of course that led then to a lot of suffering and unhappiness, because then there was pressure that I would put on myself, and there was fear of also losing. What if I lose? What if I get embarrassed? What if I lose my reputation? What are people going to think? If I lose, then I might lose my reputation, and then people won't see me in this way anymore that I've now created my identity around. You see? So then there was always a sense of feeling threatened in that. So there was this desire to try to become something more for the world and my own idea of myself. And then there was the fear of losing what I thought I was. And so again, this caused a lot of, unhappiness, and eventually I saw through that when I had my shift, self-realization shift. It was seeing clearly that that whole pursuit was coming from a state of unconsciousness, was coming from the mind. I saw clearly, right, yes, I see what's happening here. I got identified with it. And I saw that's not who I am, that's an illusion, you know. And as soon as I recognized that, then the desire that I had previously dropped away. And then there was not this sense of I need to become a mixed martial artist. I had these dreams of going into the UFC, and I went and did some trials for the UFC down in London, and all that became less important. And instead, then the martial arts became a tool that I used for self-realization. So it became part of my path at that time. I was then on the path, the spiritual path. I'd had this initial opening, this initial awakening. Then I was on the path, and something within me said, I need to finish what I've started. This is what kept reverberating within me. So I've got to finish what I started. I've got to go deeper into it. I've got to see where this goes. Because I'd tasted something within myself that was so true, so real, so vast, that I knew I needed to go all the way into it, you know. I needed to finish what I had started, or what had been started. So I used the martial arts as one of the ways for that, almost like a kind of karma yogic path, where I would compete without being attached to the result, and surrendering the result and being at peace with whether I won or lost. And also learning to be as meditative and present as possible in the build-up towards the contest, as well as in the contest itself. Because when you're it's a very interesting situation, combat, when you're competing in front of large numbers of people and you've got friends and family there. It can feel like a very high-stake situation. You know, in some ways you're putting your life on the line potentially as well, because who knows what could happen in a fight. So you really are laying yourself bare when it comes to combat. You know, if you think about it, you go out and you're there in like some shorts, you know, in the open with not, you know, nothing on your top half, and you're kind of laying yourself bare. You could get defeated, knocked out, you could get submitted, humiliated in front of friends and family in the whole world, you know, including your own sense of who you think you are, your own idea of yourself, an opinion of yourself could be destroyed. So it was a good testing ground for me, a good practice for me to see if I could overcome the fears that would come up from the mind, from the conditioned mind, and be able to remain at peace, in a state of surrender, in my true nature, and be at peace with whatever happens, whatever the result is. And once I did that a couple of times, then one day the whole thirst for mixed martial arts competition just fell away. Something within me said, that is it, you've finished. There's no more that you can get from this now. I'd used it not to try and get something in an external result. I used it as a method to overcome the ego, to overcome. It was more like an inner battle that I was overcoming. Oh. And once I had done that, something within me was saying, that is it, it's finished. You don't need to do this anymore. And so then I found that things changed in direction, and I went from pursuing this martial arts career to then sort of retreating and going even more deeply into myself, and then finding myself naturally speaking with people that seemed to need some guidance for themselves, you know, things that they were going through. And so then that took me on a whole different kind of path, if you will, which I guess has led me here with you guys as well.
Yeah, it's an amazing shift from MMA fighter to spiritual teacher, but also they have great connections, those two. You could really use like the martial arts, and martial arts has a lot of spiritual elements in it, but using it as a tool to self-realization eventually.